All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Peter Del Tondo, and I am your host for the Daily Creative Challenges for the next 3 weeks. We're going to have a ton of fun doing these. Today, I am going to be talking about my favorite feature of Adobe XD, Auto-Animate. I think this is, to me, just the icing on the cake of this application. As somebody who, I know a little bit of After Effects, but I've never dove into that enough to where I can create these like super complex animations. I can do a lot of those things through Adobe XD in like a couple of clicks. So we're going to jump into that today, show you guys how that works, and hopefully find some ways for you to think outside the box. You'll be thinking not only about just the visual design directly in front of you, but what you can do and what those possibilities are going to be using Auto-Animate and how you can showcase a vision to a developer or to a client and really just push it to that next level, because your prototypes are going to feel like a finished design, which is really, really incredible. Yeah, Steven Animation. It's in the title of today's episode, but it's just the coolest thing about XD. So let's start jumping into a couple things and make sure you guys know everything you need to know today. So first of all, if you have not yet, come up here and join the Discord channel. As we jump over to Discord here real quick, this is where you're going to kind of want to live throughout these challenges. Come join me every day. Watch the replays here on Adobe Live. But over here on the left-hand side, you should be able to see the feedback area and current challenge. And this is where you're going to want to share early, share often, and get feedback on your designs. I'll be reviewing some today on stream, as well as we'll be making videos, or the mentors over here on the top right side. You'll see we'll be dropping feedback in throughout the day, throughout the week on these projects. So make sure you guys jump into that and make sure to give feedback to other people as well. You'll learn a lot by doing that and kind of breaking down what works and what doesn't work in other people's projects, and you can apply that to your own stuff. And Eddie, yep, it's all about the watermelon. What's up, guys? I see my team in here. We've got Eddie and Pavel. Car is good to see you as well. I saw Jake in here before, Christian. And I just want to say also thank you guys. I'm so always kind of taken back by how many people we see involved in these challenges, not just when I'm hosting, but the other folks that host as well. We love seeing the same names and faces. It means that you guys are clearly getting a lot out of this, and it's really valuable for you to keep learning. So thanks for tuning in. That makes my job all that much more fun. And lastly, if you have not yet signed up for the challenges, come over here to behance.net/challenge/XD. And each day you can quickly come in here, join the community, and each day we'll be unlocking these files early in the morning. So you can always watch the replay of the videos as well as download the starter file to get going. So without further ado, let's jump into Auto-Animate. And today, what we're going to be working on is we're going to design an app to control a lighting device. And we want to utilize Auto-Animate, which uses Adobe Sensei technology, to create these really rad illustrations and transitions throughout our project. We want to understand the mechanics of how to set up your layers, how to name your layers, group them and whatnot in order to get these sequences to work correctly. It's a very important part of using Auto-Animate, and we'll go through that. Real quick, a couple of things that I would love for you guys to try out through this project and really throughout all the projects that we're going to work on. Try using some fonts from Adobe Fonts, as well as, and we'll cover this in a bit, but the different easing effects. Figure out what timings, the softness, the bounce, what kind of triggers you want to use in these different effects. They're all going to do different things. So play around with them, trial and error, find out what each one does, and find out what's right for you and kind of your go-tos. So make sure you guys spend some time playing around with that. And the almighty 8-pixel grid, you all know I preach this, but I really encourage you to work on an 8-pixel grid. It just makes things really, really clean and simple and easy to follow. And Tom, we're really motivating for you. Thank you so much. That means a lot to us. So we're going to take a look at a couple of images. And we built something similar to this actually the last time I hosted. We did some speakers and some volume control. And today we're going to focus on lighting. So again, some smart home lighting techniques. You guys could do something that's very visual and photo heavy. We could do some cool things thinking through like swipes and taps of how we can control this. Maybe it's adjusting the level or the brightness. Coming down here, we can also affect things like light shades or colors, and we can see intensities and things like that. You can get into things like using illustrations or photographs as well. And again, lots of cool stuff. I've got a couple of smart lights in my house and they're super handy and helpful. So really, really cool to use. So today we're actually going to kind of jump into somewhat of a finished file, and then we're going to expand upon that because this is kind of complicated to set up some of these triggers. So time-wise, since we're a little pressed in these short segments, I don't want to have you guys watch me make some basic shapes here. We're going to start with a little bit of a heads up. But I also want to walk through a little bit of the process, here, just some prototyping as we sketch some stuff out. And here we're just kind of quickly thinking, I know in these basic subset of screens, obviously we can expand this case study further, but I want to be able to choose through different lights, different areas in the home or something, and then go into that. I want to maybe do things like change the color, change the intensity of the light, turn it on or off, and then just playing around with things like, maybe having different lights within a room. Do we showcase that in some kind of grid or whatnot? There's lots of things that we can do here. So now that we've got our files, let's kind of look at this and see what we want to do, how we're going to go about setting up and preparing the file to do this, and then again, how we can add on to this and further explore these different effects really well. So looking at this file, I've got my app here. It's called Light. Super original, I know. And we're going to come over here, and I've got my room set up. So I've got my living room, my office, Marlena's room, Cade's room. And what I want to be able to do here is take a look at these, tap into a room, get more information about what the lighting situation is there. So in this case, as we zoom in just a little bit more, I can see that light 1 is turned off, light 2 is turned on. I can add another light, or I could start tapping into other rooms and get information there as well. As we come over to this third screen, I can see here that this light has been activated and turned on. And so let's take a look here. I'm going to show you guys what this prototype looks like. Let me actually zoom out so we see it a little bit here on the side. So I can click on to living room, and you guys see what happens there. So let's go back one. If I tap on living room, that circle right here, that condensed, got smaller and moved over, and the text of living room also shifted up and centered up with that as well. We also see now the appearance of these items. So question here is, where and how the heck did these appear? Where did they come from? We obviously had this like really smooth animation, how all of those items, everything else slid down. So what kind of magic is working here that we can set that up? I can also come here and I click on, and we see these items move over as well. So let me show you guys how we do this and how this breaks down. And there's a couple of things that are really important that I want you guys to think about along the way. One is, it's very, very important to name your layers, your groups, etc., so that you can kind of make sense of it. And if we tap in here, for example, and we come in, I can see some different information over here. So I see living room, I see my living room background. I come in here, and this one's not named, throw myself under the bus. It's group 1. And you can do this because if you're duplicating your artboards or you're duplicating layers, those names are going to stay consistent. However, it's not necessarily going to make it as easy for you to understand like what these items are. So I might want to come here, for example, I'm not going to change it because this is already preset up, but I might want to come in and name this something like living room couch icon or something like that. That way it's a little bit easier to understand what these are at a glance. But the way that Auto-Animate works is Adobe Sensei finds the connections between the consistent naming conventions. So when I come in here and I click into this group, I can see Eclipse here. So it's Eclipse 1. And when I come over here, this is eclipse 1. And so what it's doing is it's just taking that item and morphing it into that new shape. So you can kind of go through, you can do a sequence of events by that, utilizing those same shapes, those same names. If I were to name this thing Eclipse 10, it would completely disconnect. It wouldn't work this way. And it would have like a very jarring animation because it would just appear out of nowhere. So make sure that when you guys are doing this, the namings are very, very important. That's like a key thing. The other now, as we look at this, is these items have moved down. This is really simple. I just grab these items, I keep them all grouped, in the spacings I want, and I drag those down to the side. So kind of just recreate that for you guys quickly, is I would come down here, grab these elements, and I would just slide that down, and then I would come in, grab this background, slide this to the distance that I want, and that's essentially how we got to this. And that's going to create that nice fluid motion. Again, everything is named consistently, so it's just going to grab those items, slide it down, and Adobe Sensei is able to detect the difference between the two screens and does a nice smooth transition between the screens that you have. The next thing is now, how do we simply get these to come in? Because we don't want them to kind of just appear from nowhere. If you guys remember, if I play this back one more time, the transition for this is nice and smooth, and it kind of animates almost like, it feels as though it animates from down below and it kind of fades in. And that's exactly what it's doing. So the way that we built this, we come in here and I kind of, you'll see right here, I actually have that same layer, so light 1. And what I did was I just moved the opacity all the way down. So it's actually in the same spot, it's just kind of hidden away. So that then when it goes to activate on that screen, all I have to do is bump up the opacity, make it visible. And now as everything else slides down, it's fading in, and it creates that illusion of that cool, like, developed interaction. And so again, keep your layers named correctly, think through those animations, think about how things appear. And then when I come in, I go to my prototype mode, and I'm going to click on this. And what you guys can see is, I'll disconnect this just so it's off, but I can come here, oops, I grab this little arrow. I'm just going to bring it over to the screen that I want, really simple to do. And I'm going to change this here. I want it to stay tap. You can also do things like drag and video game keypads or whatnot, or keys, as well as voice. But I want to keep it on tap, but I'm going to change it from transition to auto-animate. Transition will just transition from screen to screen, and there we can see things like dissolves, slides, pushes, but we want to use auto-animate. That's going to be what creates that really cool and kind of magical view. So we click on auto-animate. I want to give this a little bit more time because I like it to feel a little bit slower. It gives it a little bit more of that like fade effect. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to go, we'll call it middle of the range at 0.6 seconds. And again, you can play with these different easing effects to find what works for you. Different types of effects like tapping hearts for, say, like an Instagram like or something along those lines. You might want to try those snaps or bounces because it'll give you that like enlarged object and then kind of snap back down, and it creates that cool tap effect. So play with these different things, see what you guys like. All right, so as I come in here, I can look at other items. Again, my transition from, let's go out of prototype mode, of this item to here where it's been tapped on, really easy. I come in here, all I do is change the text on, I bump up the color and opacity of these different objects. So this here is white, we've got our text here, the opacity on this I knock up a little bit so it feels like it's activated, and I've got a little gradient so that as it's brighter, it looks brighter. So hopefully that makes sense. And yeah, Steven, I agree. The slower animations and demos, it just feels like you can see it. Sometimes the others are so quick that you kind of miss it. So I like slowing things down just a tad. So I think that kind of gives the basis of this. So let's talk about a little bit more about how we would expand on this and build out some others. So what I've got is two other screens here, and we'll kind of recreate these, but I'm going to pull them over so I can see it a little bit for my own reference. And what I want to do is I want to be able to tap on Office here and have this come in with the rest of the information. So what I did was I just copied these layers, and what I did was I named them Light 1A and Light 2A. And again, this is just like quick and kind of hacky, but if you remember, these ones are called Light 1 and Light 2. So the naming convention had to be different. Otherwise, these would essentially slide down and look kind of awkward and janky. I want it to be easier to transition between them. And Rashid, yeah, I agree. This is a little too faded, I think. So we could come in here and let me just transition this, and we could make that a little bit softer, so that's easier to see. I agree. The contrast on these needs to be bumped up. All right. So as I do that, this is going to be kind of what we transition into. So let's grab this screen here. I'm going to pull this over. And again, you guys are going to see how we've recreated that. So I've already got my lights. These are stuck here, and I just have them down at 0% opacity. So you could just grab these, kind of in your finished position, pull them over, drag the opacity down. Really simple. And then I'm going to come in here. I'm going to delete the icon. I know because I'm using that 8-pixel grid system, this is going to be 8. Whoops. And let me go back here. I've got my ellipse. And we'll just center this up really quick. We're going to go 8 pixels. And then same thing, I'm just going to pull this to center. And I'll just do this quick at the moment, but my OCD is killing me that it's not on the 8-pixel grid. All right, cool. And now we're going to pull these down. I know I want this to be 350 in height. So these need to go down a bit further. All right, and okay, so we've got that there. All right, and now what I want to do is, let me find my Light 2A. I'm going to bump that up. I'm going to bump this one up, and then I've got my plus sign, and I'm going to make that visible as well. So you guys can see there how I just took those items that, you build this screen first, you copy those items over to the other, you turn the opacity down, and now what that's going to allow me to do is I can come over here. Actually, let's link up one more of these. So I'm going to go to prototype. I'll link this to this screen, Auto-Animate, and it's going to remember my last settings. So that's really important because you don't have to reconfigure this every single time. But I can come over here now. I'm going to grab Office here as well, and I'll do that. And then we've got it set up to the other screen, but I'll just actually set these over here because I know that that one's a little bit more pixel perfect. All right, so I can now go back into design mode. I click play. And what's cool is from this screen, I could come in and say I turn this on, and I want to switch into Office. And you guys see how cool that worked? Like, okay, let me relink this back so we can see the transition. Go here. All right. So when we start this now, I go to Office and everything fades out. This goes back into place. The icon reappears. Oh, wait, I have that wrong. I need this screen to go back to here. All right. So one more time, we go back, and I can go back and forth, and you guys see how just smooth and seamless this all works. And it's amazing to have that ability here quickly in XD. It's just great to drop your files in here, do these quick animations, especially when you're trying to have a developer that you want to say, here's what I'm looking to do, go check this out. It just makes things really, really simple. So lastly, one of the last items that I have linked up, and I don't think I'm going to have time to show you guys the other in-between step. I wanted to do a screen that showed the naming of a particular room, but I can click here and it adds a new room in there. I would want an intermediary step that says like new room, what do you want to call it, and select an icon. So maybe you guys can build something like that out. But again, you just get to see how quickly we get to do that, and everything just, it slides down, the new item appears. And that would be a great transition if up here you had a nice little, square box or rectangle box that allows you to do that. You click submit and it just appears down below. It's like magic. So that's kind of the essence of Auto-Animate. So remember to name your layers correctly, work through the transitions, make sure that you are set to Auto-Animate, not transition, and then play around with those easing effects so that you guys get the look and style that you're looking for. And with that, let's jump into a couple of projects from the other day I really, really like. And let's see, Steven, yeah, check out, I know I've posted some stuff in Pro Tips. I'll share some things there again that talk about the 8-pixel grid, but it's really great. Okay, so I wanted to chat through a couple of these items. I thought these were really great from day 1 and day 2. So this one here, I just wanted to say I love the out-of-the-box thinking that as I select these items, that you chose to put like pictures in there. It's really cool getting to see art, and then there's art in the background, music, film. I just think that that's really, really cool, a really great way to think about it. I can see my tags here. I can easily like drop them and remove them, and I get a good glimpse at what kind of things are going around. Looks like we're missing a line on this section, but really, really, really great. All right, we keep going, and I think that's the end. But this is a great example of a couple of quick screens that allow us to build out our case study and get a better understanding of stuff. And I love seeing so many people sharing feedback and whatnot over here. Janet, thanks for jumping in and giving that detailed feedback. All right, adopt a pit bull rescue. This was another one that I thought was really cool because you kind of adapted the challenge, again, to something that's of interest to you. Just make sure that your alignments are correct. I can see this isn't centered in the screen, but let's jump in and kind of like, picking an activity here. You went through that same filtering system. So we've got the size of your dog, the age. We can select the sex of the dog, if it's okay around cats, dogs, etc. Really cool. And again, showing these filters, I'd love the ability to X some of these and spread them out a little bit more. That way I could remove one and see what other options are in there. But really great. And I get to see more information about them. So great start on this. All right, we've got this one for, looks like learning how to play the bass guitar. And over this, let's see, we can jump in. We've got a scroll. I can click into one of these. I forget which one was clickable. All right, and I get to see the lessons about them. I'd love to learn a little bit more about the instructor rather than just the class too. I think that could be really important, kind of what qualifies that person to be speaking or teaching this. And I would say maybe a different treatment for the photo here because it's making this text really tough to read. That was one thing I noticed on this design. On that black background, you're using a lightweight font. And so it's really difficult to see that from a contrast standpoint, and the type's really small. So I'd bump up the weight, probably bump up the size a little bit, and you might want to use more of the screen to leverage that space and real estate. And let's see, I think we got time for one, maybe two more. So this one over here, I liked this events. One thing I was going to mention here is that make sure you're leaving enough room for the top navigation bar in iPhone or Android. The other is I feel like this one I get a little lost in how I get back to some things. I get this, but I'd love to dive into one of these items and have a little bit more insight into that. And let's see, I think there was one more I wanted to go over. This one was really cool. I love talking about Animate. We watched this one, and they've done this with timed transitions. And so with this, it kind of creates, I'm not touching or tapping anything here. It's creating these series of animations that are going through and setting up from screen to screen. And we'll do this with another one. We're going to do a smartwatch app that's going to utilize Auto-Animate and these timed features. But this is really cool. And even this one here is probably going to loop, and it's going to bounce up and down and gives us a really cool effect. And again, kind of tricks us into thinking that this has been developed and it's not just a design prototype. So we can come in here, we'll click Let's Explore. Again, we're going to have some nice animations. These come in, I'd love these to be organized a little bit more, maybe all centered or something, but it feels a little busy and chaotic. It kind of feels like rivers in type. So I would love that, excuse me, to be a little bit more simplified. But this is great. And I can click in these, nice little animation on those. I click next. How much time do I have? Great. Excuse me. And it gives me some awesome results here. So I can see the different things that I can do. And make a decision from there. So really, really great job on these guys. Excited to jump into some more. I'll be tossing some videos in there today, giving you guys some more robust feedback on these projects. But super excited that you guys are joining in. Join me tomorrow. We're going to be working on some more fun stuff, and make sure to stay tuned for the next series. They're going to be talking more about design systems, I believe. Make sure you check that out and set up your files in a really organized way and learn how somebody else is doing that. So thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you tomorrow, and have a wonderful day.